When a CEO invited the janitor to her party, an incredible life-changing bond was revealed. Hannah stared at her reflection in the glass elevator as it glided down to the lobby of her skyscraper. The city of Chicago spilled beneath her in a vibrant tapestry of ambition and dreams. She was everything society expected of a successful woman, CEO of a thriving tech startup, standing tall at 35, her designer outfit worth more than most pay in rent. Yet, beneath that polished surface, a gnawing emptiness clawed at her heart. The glitzy world of meetings and annual parties offered no warmth, no genuine connections. It all felt so hollow. Then, the elevator dinged. The doors slid open to reveal Joe, a janitor in his late 40s, pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies. Hannah had seen him countless times, quiet, diligent, always offering a nod or a smile. But today, something was different. They exchanged hellos, and in her moment of frustration with her isolated world, Hannah asked, "How's your day, Joe?" With a gentle grin, he replied, "Just cleaning up after the dreams of others." His voice carried the weight of wisdom, exemplifying a resilience she yearned for. Intrigued, she found herself asking him about his life, his struggles. What started as small talk morphed into a profound conversation, revealing a shared humanity that transcended their societal roles. Hannah invited him to her opulent company party, a move that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The night arrived, rich with elegance and opulence. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, the air thick with laughter and bubbling champagne. As guests admired Hannah's success, Joe stood out like a beacon of authenticity in his humble attire. The judgmental glances from her colleagues wrapped around him like a vice. Despite his innate dignity, the discomfort was palpable. Hannah felt a tightening in her chest, torn between the warmth she felt for Joe and the exclusivity of her social circle. Just when Joe contemplated leaving, Hannah glimpsed the disapproving expressions of her peers. The pressure of privilege weighed heavily on her, a sudden awareness igniting a boldness within. "You know what?" she declared, her voice cutting through the din. "Joe sees something real in this world that many of us don't. His story is worth more than all this." The room fell silent. Whispers danced around them like smoke. For a heartbeat, hope flickered in the air. And then, remarkably, Joe spoke up, emotions spilling from his heart. "I've spent my life caring for my mother, struggling day to day but finding honor in the grind." His voice resonated, rich with raw vulnerability. His story drew all eyes, creating a bridge between their worlds, stirring something profound beneath the veneer of wealth. As applause broke through the tension, Hannah's heart raced. But not everyone was inspired. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, murmuring their defenses. A divide formed, and in that moment, Hannah battled her desire for acceptance and the growing respect she had for Joe. If this night was to be a turning point, would the crowd embrace empathy, or would they retreat to their comfort zones? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Joe, feeling the strength of his truth, stood there, teetering on the edge of transformation. Hannah watched, her heart pounding, realizing that genuine connection could shatter the walls of class and privilege. A moment hung in the air, heavy with the possibility of change. Would this evening be the catalyst for redefining their lives, or would the status quo win? As their worlds collided, both remained poised on the precipice of something extraordinary, a question lingering in the silence: could they forge a bond that transcended their differences? As the applause faded, a tension suffused the air, thick with the palpable mixing of hope and discomfort. For a moment, it felt like the barriers between Hannah and Joe were dissolving, bonds of understanding stretching out before them, almost as if the evening had cracked open a door into a whole new world. But quickly, the harsh reality set back in, and Hannah noticed the collective breath of the crowd shift in a negative tide. Amid hushed whispers and sidelong glances, she sensed the unease coiling tighter around her like a snake. Despite the courage swirling within her heart, the feeling of disapproval from her peers loomed large. Hannah felt her pulse drumming in her ears, a chaotic mix of excitement and fear. Would they embrace this raw honesty, or would she watch them slip back into comfort, rejecting what they just heard? Joe stood slightly apart, the light catching in his eyes, reflecting not just the glimmer of the chandeliers overhead but the depth of his story. In that moment, he transformed from just the janitor to a man with layers, his struggles and triumphs laid bare for all to see. Their eyes met, and in that split second, she saw the vulnerability mirrored in his gaze. It struck her this was a man brave enough to share his truth, and she found herself wanting to be brave too. With a deep breath, Hannah stepped toward him, feeling a subtle shift. "Joe," she called, hoping her voice would carry above the murmuring crowd. He turned to her, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Thank you for sharing that," she continued, her own voice steadying. "Your story is important. We need to hear it more." She felt the heat of affirmations brewing inside her, a warmth pushing out the chill of judgment. But as more guests turned their attention back to them, the disapproval was palpable. One of her senior executives, a pearl-clutching woman named Claire, scoffed loudly. "Really, Hannah? You're going to bring him into our world? What's next?" The room shifted again, as Claire's words dripped with disbelief. Hannah forced a smile, but inside she felt a pulse of anger. "Maybe we all need to remember that our world should be inclusive, Claire. Sometimes, you find wisdom in unexpected places." Joe caught her eye, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief etched on his features. But just as quickly, his expression shifted. "Hannah, I didn't come here to disrupt. I wanted to be supportive, to show gratitude for the life I have. But your life matters, Joe. Look at how much we can learn from each other," she urged, her heart racing. She realized that for every disapproving face in the room, there was a thought, a feeling beneath it. As Joe opened his mouth to respond, a crisp sound echoed around them, breaking the tension. It was applause, not the polite clapping of a party, but genuine recognition. Heads turned to see another night janitor, an older man named Marcus, standing at the doorway. "I think Joe makes a solid point," he announced. His voice was gravelly but resonant, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. "We work hard to support our families. We have stories to tell just like you." A ripple of surprise cascaded through the crowd. Joe's face brightened, hope flashing in his eyes as others began to nod slowly, recognizing the truth that resided in every story. In common struggles, Hannah felt the atmosphere shift again, this time laden with curiosity rather than disdain. Would they begin to embrace understanding? The energy in the room felt almost electric. And as Joe turned back to her, their bond deepened anew, a moment pregnant with possibility. What would happen next? Would they collectively step into a new kind of unity, or would barriers emerge once more? The night was only beginning, but the stakes had never been higher. Joe looked out at the shifting crowd, his heart thudding in his chest. For a moment, he felt buoyed by Marcus's support, but just as quickly, he could sense the walls of indifference solidifying again. The tension had shifted, but was it enough to break the mold? Hannah reached in closer, her presence a warm anchor in the growing storm. "This is just the start," she murmured to Joe, her voice low and sincere. "We have to keep this ball rolling, show them there's more to the story." Joe nodded, though doubt tugged at the corners of his heart. But will they listen? "I came here tonight just to help clean up, to do my job." I never thought, he trailed off, the vulnerability of his situation saturating his voice. "They will listen," Hannah insisted, scanning the faces around them, searching for signs of hope. "We owe it to all the stories that have yet to be told." At the mention of stories, Claire took it upon herself to stand tall, arms crossed defiantly. "And how many of those stories are worth hearing, Hannah? We have higher expectations," and Hannah stepped forward, cutting her off. Exactly. And what are those expectations based on? Whose voices are we valuing more? It was a risky move, pushing back against a senior executive in front of their peers, but Hannah felt strong and resolute. Each word fueled a fire within her. The gathering murmured, the crowd split between cautious supporters and the more steadfast traditionalists. Marcus moved closer to Joe, a twinkle of encouragement in his eyes. This is what we need, a conversation. Not just the same people talking over and over again. He gestured toward the attendees, urging their involvement. Let us hear from everyone. We've all got something to share. A young woman from the back of the room stood up. I actually agree with him. My mom worked 2 jobs just to keep us fed. I want to hear more from people like Joe what you go through every day. Her voice trembled with honesty, rattling the quiet disbelief in the room. Hannah could feel the tide beginning to shift more broadly now. One by one, curious faces began to lean in closer, disbelief giving way to interest, fear softening into understanding. Joe swallowed hard, his pulse quickening as he gazed around the room. If you really want to know, it's not just about me. It's about all of us. We all have a part to play. We're all in this together, and maybe if we really listened, we could find solutions to make things better for everyone. His words hung in the air like a challenge, posting an invitation that no one could ignore. Claire's expression hardened, but in that instant, a ripple of nods danced through the audience. Hesitations began to peel away, giving way to the light of possibility, one spark after another igniting shared stories waiting in the wings. Watching the interaction unfold, Hannah felt an energy swell around her. This is what it's about, she thought, heart racing with the promise of change. Real conversations. But just as the atmosphere brightened, a voice from the back blurted out, are we really going to reject our standards just to hear the so-called little people? What's next, allowing them on our board? Facing the crowd, this new critic was determined to reignite the cinders of doubt. A collective gasp echoed through the room, the delicate balance of understanding dangling on a knife's edge. Would they embrace this moment together, or would barriers rise again, threatening to extinguish the flickering flame of unity? Hannah felt a mix of hope and dread. This was a turning point, but whose story would be silenced next? As eyes turned left and right, Hannah locked gazes with Joe, and they both understood the next move was critical, but could they find a way to keep the door open instead of slamming it shut? The moment, heavy with potential, begged for resolution. The silence stretched, thick and palpable, a tangible thing that wrapped itself around each person in the room. Joe felt the weight of those gazes, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Questions swirled in his mind. What could he say to turn this tide completely? Hannah stepped forward, taking a deep breath. She turned to the critic, her voice steady. What if those little people have insights that could actually reshape our approach? Isn't it worth listening? Joe watched as Hannah's words unfolded like a flag of hope, catching the wind in its embrace. He could feel an undercurrent, a shift in the atmosphere as others began to murmur in agreement, voices rising to life around them. Yeah, let us hear from everyone. Encouraged by the momentum, Marcus joined in. Exactly. Everyone's experience counts. We've been looking at this through the same lens for too long. His passion reignited the room, a spark that lit fire to the collective desire for a new perspective, but Claire's brow furrowed, the tension gripping her features. But not at the expense of merit. What's next? We make decisions based on feelings rather than expertise. Joe's heart sank. He felt a wave of desperation, a visceral urge to reach her, to connect the dots between their perceptions of worth. It's not about replacing merit. It's about broadening our understanding. What good is expertise if it fails to resonate with real lives? A man in the crowd, a newcomer just faintly recognizable from behind the scenes, spoke up next. I remember when I was in Joe's shoes, struggling to make ends meet while watching others climb higher. Those experiences can open our eyes, he said, his voice rich with hard-earned authenticity. The room stirred, energy surging as Joe realized more people were now sharing their stories. Each voice, once hidden behind doubt, surged forward like a tidal wave, carving a new path through the firmament of privilege. Hannah caught Joe's eye, and in that moment, he understood the power of vulnerability. People were hungry for connection, hungry for truth. This wasn't merely a conversation anymore, it was a collective awakening. Let us forget about status for a moment. Let us just be human with one another, Joe urged, his heart racing. What if we started focusing on solutions instead of who's in charge? The crowd answered with murmurs of agreement. Joe's voice grew stronger. Together, we can innovate. Together, we can adapt and thrive. But we need to hear each other. Everyone here has something valuable to contribute. With renewed courage, he added, each of your lives is a chapter in this story, and it deserves to be told. Let us rewrite what our expectations are and who gets a seat at the table. There was a long pause, and for a heartbeat, it felt as though the world stood still. People looked at each other, and slowly, heads nodded, turning the tides back toward hope. Claire's defiance began to thaw, if only slightly. I suppose if there's merit in what you say, she conceded slowly, her voice softer, not quite surrendering but shifting nonetheless. Could this be the breakthrough they desperately sought? Hope flooded through Hannah and Joe, but before they could celebrate, another voice from the crowd spoke up, and what about the consequences? If we open this wide, we risk everything we've built. The question lingered, heavy with apprehension, as uncertainty crept back in. Everyone turned to face the source, surprise and curiosity mingling in the air. Joe held his breath, knowing that the next few moments would determine if the opening they carefully crafted flourished or faltered. Would they nurture this newfound conversation or retreat back into safety, shackled by fear? Hannah squeezed Joe's hand, her warmth a reminder of their shared purpose. Now's the time, she whispered. They need to hear from us, hear us really. But could they overcome the looming dread, and what would it mean for them all if they did? Hannah stepped into that uncertain space, her heart pounding. The room felt electric, a mix of hope and fear swirling together. She took another deep breath, steadying herself. Now wasn't the time to back down. She had to be a bridge. Look, she began, meeting the eyes of those who were still skeptical. I get it. We've built this system to protect what we've worked so hard for. We don't want everything to crumble. She slowly glanced around the room, gauging responses. But change doesn't mean destruction, it means making space for new ideas. Exactly. Joe chimed in, feeling the momentum building once more. We can innovate without losing what we value. Our existing frameworks can adapt. Just look at history. Think of all the industries that evolved by embracing diverse ideas. It's how we grow. Claire's brows softened a little, her features relaxing as she absorbed their words. You really believe this could work? She asked, her voice wavering between skepticism and curiosity. It has to, Joe said, his conviction pouring out in waves. We're standing at a crossroads. What we decide today could ripple through our community for years to come. If we don't take this leap, we risk stagnation, and that's far more dangerous. A deep silence enveloped the space as heads began to nod in agreement, slowly at first but building in certainty. Joe noticed Marcus' determined expression, and he felt a renewed rush of hope. Let us share ideas, Hannah encouraged, her voice rising, pushing through the layers of doubt. What do we need to consider? What do we want to change? One by one, people began to speak up. Their voices wove together in a powerful tapestry, some shared personal experiences, while others proposed tangible solutions. The janitor, now encouraged, shared insights about the building's operations, a perspective that had always been overlooked. See? Hannah's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she gestured towards him. Everyone contributes, even in ways we don't realize at first. It's not about titles, it's about experiences. The crowd hummed with energy, transforming the atmosphere into something filled with possibility. Claire's expression shifted, and for the first time, Joe sensed a glimmer of agreement forming within her. The tension that had once bound everyone in a tight knot began to loosen. But then came another voice from the back of the room. What happens if we break the mold? How do we even start? Joe turned, feeling the weight of that question again. That's the beauty of it. We start small. We hold meetings, invite everyone to share, and create committees of people who will lead from all walks of life. Committees? Claire echoed. Wouldn't that just complicate the process? Or simplify it, Joe said, clearing his throat, knowing he needed to frame it right. With diverse voices, we reduce blind spots. We can see further. And we can build trust. It's about using our differences to our advantage. Hannah nodded, feeding off Joe's energy. It's a collaborative journey. If we accept each other as contributions, we can craft solutions that resonate with everyone involved. As the crowd buzzed with excitement, their words spilling forth like water from a broken dam, Hannah glanced at Joe, and they exchanged a look of shared triumph. Not yet a victory, but a clear shift was taking place. A camaraderie built around shared dreams was taking root. But there was still so much to face: the doubt, the pushback. The tension hummed beneath the surface, as one final voice resonated, quieter but steady. And what if this doesn't work? What then? This time, it was Claire who faced the crowd. Maybe we find strength in that failure. We regroup, revisit, and try again. It was a pivotal moment. They had moved beyond just discussing fears; those fears now had a counterbalance. Joe's heart raced again, not just with excitement, but with the understanding that a new beginning was in sight. Could everyone truly embrace this chance? What would they face tomorrow, when the reality of their discussions began to settle in? A flicker of uncertainty hung in the air, as they prepared to delve even deeper. Would courage sustain them, or would fear pull them back once again? The next day felt heavy with the weight of yesterday's conversation. As Hannah entered the building, she could feel the palpable change in the air, like the calm before the storm. Anticipation mixed with apprehension danced around her. Walking past the nameless faces, eyes that had once held skepticism now flickered with curiosity. She knew today was pivotal. Joe found her in the break room, pouring a cup of coffee. Did you see the emails? People are starting to sign up for the committee meetings, he said, the corners of his mouth lifting in a smile. It's happening, Hannah. We might actually be on the verge of a breakthrough. Let us hope it's the right kind of breakthrough, she replied, trying to balance his enthusiasm with realism. People will come with their fears. We need to address those head-on. Absolutely. The last thing we want is for them to feel unheard, he acknowledged, running a hand through his hair. What if we list out all the concerns and deal with them before they even get voiced? That's a brilliant idea. Hannah said, feeling a surge of excitement. The old systems were primed for dismantling, and new solutions seemed just within reach. As they moved into the larger meeting room, they found people already filling chairs, engaged in quiet conversations. Hannah's heart raced again. She knew this moment could either ignite hope or bury them in doubt. Good morning, everyone. She called out, her voice cutting through the chatter. I hope you're all as ready as I am to explore how we can work together. The room quieted down, and she continued, we each have something to contribute, and I want to hear your thoughts. What are the barriers you think we need to address? Claire was the first to respond, standing up slowly. I was hesitant at first, she admitted, her voice wavering slightly. But I realized we can't keep fishing in the same pond and expect to catch something different. I'd like to help identify areas where we can bring in new voices. A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd. Hannah glanced at Joe, and they shared a look of encouragement. A wave of voices flowed forth. One after another, they listed fears: fear of change, fear of losing their jobs, fear of being unheard. Each shared fear was met with nods and murmurs of sympathy. Hannah knew every concern mattered, but it was time to pivot to potential solutions. Let us break into groups, Hannah suggested, making eye contact with Marcus, who was among the naysayers yesterday but now looked thoughtful. Each group can tackle one of these concerns head-on. The room buzzed to life again, the energy shifting from apprehension to collaboration. As they divided into smaller clusters, Hannah felt a swell of hope rise within her. Hours passed, laughter and earnest discussion weaving their way through the room. It was a far cry from the frostiness of their previous meetings. Hannah approached Marcus, who was deep in conversation with a few others. "Any breakthroughs?" she asked with genuine curiosity. "Yeah, I think we're finally coming to understand each other," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "I see now that we've been so focused on our own worries that we missed the value in collaboration." "Exactly. That's what it's all about," Hannah beamed. "Bringing diverse perspectives together is how we navigate the unknown." As the groups began sharing their insights, Hannah's heart swelled. They were crafting a vision together, a shared future that felt possible. She watched Claire and Marcus engage animatedly, their once distant stances softening, yet, as the final sentiments were shared, Hannah couldn't shake a lingering fear. The idea of the unknown still loomed large. What if we mess this up? She thought, echoing the quiet worry that had flickered through the room. Just then, one voice rang out above the rest. "We have to be brave. If we've learned anything today, it's that we can't let fear define us." It was the janitor's voice, humble yet powerful. The moment pressed heavy, as if the very walls were echoing his straightforward wisdom. The room went silent for a heartbeat. Could they really rise to this challenge? As sparks of determination surged, Hannah felt a flicker of hope rekindle within her. But she couldn't ignore the nagging doubt that danced in her mind. How long could this newfound unity last, and what would they face when the real test began? The air was charged with potential, each person set to push forward into the unknown. Would they be able to keep that momentum going, or would they falter at the first hurdle? The next morning, the sun pierced through the window blinds, spilling warm light across the office floor. Hannah awoke refreshed, but an anxious energy buzzed at the edge of her thoughts. The conversation from yesterday had begun to settle in her mind. With the tide of hope swelling around them, she couldn't shake the question, how would they keep that momentum alive, especially when faced with the realities of change? As she prepared for work, she pulled her hair into a neat bun, the action grounding her. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that today would be crucial in solidifying the progress they'd made. Arriving at the office, Hannah was greeted by a wave of friendly faces. Joe was pacing near the entrance, fiddling with his notepad. "Ready to do this?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Ready, and a little terrified," she admitted, trying to match his enthusiasm with a smile. Together, they walked towards the meeting room, where they had invited everyone for what they were calling a check-in and celebrate session. Hannah hoped that by recognizing their small successes, the team could foster a culture where collaboration was seen as rewarding rather than daunting. As people began to fill the room, Hannah felt the buzzing energy from the day before start to swell again. After a quick greeting, Joe opened with a recap of the previous day. He excitedly recounted how they tackled fears and anxieties and how collaboration was beginning to transform their workplace. Then it was Hannah's turn. She stepped to the front, her heart pounding as she scanned the crowd. "What we did yesterday matters," she began, her tone steady but passionate. "We took the first big step towards a shared vision. Everyone here is necessary for that vision, and I want to celebrate exactly what we've accomplished." As she spoke, laughter filled the air, like a palpable current. She could see people once distant and apprehensive exchange smiles and nods, feeling the warmth of encouragement radiate between them. "Today, I want each of you to share a highlight or something positive you learned from yesterday that sparked inspiration," she declared, and the excitement in the room surged as hands shot up. One by one, their stories emerged. Claire shared how she never imagined she could contribute to discussions about change management, while Marcus spoke about his newfound appreciation for different perspectives. With each story, the sense of camaraderie deepened. But then, amidst the enthusiastic chatter, the door creaked open, and the janitor stepped in. He wore his usual worn-out shoes, and for a moment, silence washed over the room. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said softly, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "No. Please, join us," Hannah said, heartwarming cheer bubbling in her chest. He walked to the center and shared simple truths about his experiences, sharing laughs but also poignant moments from his time in the building. "You all worry about roles and titles," he said thoughtfully. "But it's the people together that matter most. That's the real strength." Hannah watched as the crowd absorbed his words, ripple effects of realization washing over their faces. It was a marked shift from the stuffy corporate conversations she was used to, raw and real. But as the session came to a close, so did her moment of comfort. It was time to show the fruits of their labor. "Now, let us break into teams again," she announced. "I want each group to come up with at least one actionable step we can take to advance our collaborative efforts." Can you feel the momentum? Excitement surged again, but Hannah felt a shadow creep in. Would they dissolve into chatter again when it mattered most? As laughter filled the room yet again, she couldn't recognize the edge of tension she'd been carrying. It was time to dive in and trust. But her feeling of uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Would this fragile unity withstand the inevitable challenges ahead? Or would real life tear them apart just as they were beginning to bond? As they formed into their groups, she felt the question linger in the air, daring her to explore where this newfound connection would lead them. In the corner of the room, teams began to form, animated discussions buzzing like electricity. Hannah watched as ideas bounced around, glances exchanged, and laughter erupted. Yet, the weight at the back of her mind pressed heavier. Would their spirit of collaboration survive the pull of routine and familiarity? Joe, deep in conversation with Claire and Marcus, gestured animatedly, his enthusiasm infectious. They were brainstorming how to better integrate their talents. Hannah's heart swelled. These were the sparks of change she had envisioned. But in the back of her mind, doubts gnawed. Was this excitement real or just fleeting? Minutes ticked by as each team engaged in animated dialogues. She moved around, listening in, sharing a quip here or a nudge there. Each moment felt precious, but just as she began to feel at ease, a sudden sound caught her attention. The door opened again, and in walked Mr. Jenkins, their senior VP, with the air of authority that sent a ripple through the room. All chatter halted as eyes turned toward him. Mr. Jenkins cleared his throat, a habit Hannah recognized, and she felt her heart quicken. "I heard there's a lot of energy in here today," he began, surveying the crowd with a critical gaze. "I want to support what you're doing, but we need to stay focused on results. This isn't a feels-good session." Hannah's stomach dropped. She could almost see the enthusiasm deflating like a balloon losing air. "We must show tangible outcomes," he continued, "and I'll be expecting updates on your progress." His tone left little room for negotiation. Then, with a sharp nod, he turned to leave, leaving a trail of unease behind him. The once vibrant atmosphere dimmed. Hannah felt the anxious tension return, crawling back like a shadow across the room. She looked around, smiles faded and shoulders slumped. Doubt seeped in, cooling the warmth they had just shared. Joe caught her eye, mouthing a silent question, "What now?" Hannah inhaled deeply, the depth of the challenge settling around her. She grasped the table's edge, steadied her breath, and stepped forward. "Okay, everyone," she called out, a thin smile breaking through her anxiety. "We've faced changes before, and maybe we've surprised ourselves. Let us not lose this momentum. What are our next concrete steps?" Slowly, the spark began to flicker again. Claire raised her hand, speaking with a bit more hesitation but firm determination. "What if we create a timeline for the next 3 months? We can break our goals into smaller tasks." "Great idea." Someone else chimed in, and soon people were enthusiastically building on her suggestion. Topics shifted, and ideas flowed once more. A wave of relief swept through Hannah, it was just enough to reignite that warm spirit. But as the discussions intensified, a different feeling started brewing, one of exhilaration mixed with anxiety. This was the challenge of creating something that mattered amongst the pressures of corporate life. They didn't just want to meet expectations, they wanted to exceed them. Hannah's gaze fell on the janitor, who quietly observed from a distance, seemingly satisfied that his brief interjection had made an impact. The way he had connected with them reminded her that success came from the heart, not just from numbers on a report. As energy surged back into the room, Hannah considered how Mr. Jenkins' visit had sparked a reaction. It sent them on a path toward deeper scrutiny, pushing them to strive for more than they thought possible. Could this tension ignite a fire within their unity? Hannah's heart pounded with questions. Would they emerge stronger, or would the weight of expectations break them apart? With the session nearing its close, Hannah felt the stakes heighten. The joy in the room mingled with uncertainty, creating a cocktail of hope and fear. Could they harness the inspiration they had built? She glanced around, their eyes reflecting a mix of determination and vulnerability. The laughter may have faded, but the heartbeat of their collective ambition sang louder. But tomorrow loomed ahead, a new day, new challenges, and an interview with Mr. Jenkins about their first progress report. Hannah felt the familiar twist of anxiety tightening in her chest. Would they meet the mark? Would they rise to the occasion? As the meeting wrapped up and teams began to disperse, Hannah was left with that familiar question echoing in her mind: what lay ahead? And could the bonds forged today be strong enough to weather the storms of reality? The morning sun filtered through the office windows, casting soft beams across the conference room where Hannah stood, a pile of papers clenched in her hands. Today was the day. The progress report they had worked so hard on loomed before her like a grand test, each detail polished and every outcome scrutinized. Yet, the pulse of anxiety wrapped tighter around her chest as she wondered if they had done enough. Around her, the atmosphere felt tense. Her colleagues trickled into the room, a motley crew of eager faces and worry lines. Claire shuffled her notes, Marcus fidgeted with his tie, while Joe paced back and forth, the nervous energy radiating off him palpable. Hannah caught the eye of the janitor, who was sweeping just outside the door. His steady gaze offered the solace she needed, a reminder that sometimes the most profound insights come from unexpected places. "Okay, team," Hannah called out, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "This is our chance to showcase the effort we've put in. Let us remember that collaboration is not just about today, it's about building a foundation for our future." With that, Joe slid into the chair beside her, a slight smile breaking through his anxiety. "We've got this, right?" "Right," she replied, attempting to radiate confidence despite her own doubts. The door swung open, and Mr. Jenkins strode in, followed closely by the senior management team. His presence commanded silence, a mixture of respect and trepidation filling the room. "Let us get down to business," he began, eyeing each of them with a critical intensity. Hannah felt the heat rise to her cheeks, but she stood tall, ready to present their hard work. As she spoke, she saw the flicker of hope ignite in her team, each bullet point gaining weight and significance. They had set challenging targets, but they had collided together like pieces of a jigsaw, forming a clearer picture. As the meeting progressed, Jenkins listened, nodding occasionally while taking notes. Just when she felt the rhythm of the discussion flowing, Jenkins interjected, "Let us move to the results portion. What impact have you made?" The room felt like it was holding its breath. This was the moment they had all worked towards. Hannah glanced at Claire, and they shared an encouraging nod. They presented their statistics clearly, sharing how teamwork had led to increased productivity. But just as she began to feel control return, Mr. Jenkins raised an eyebrow, sharpening his questioning. "And the feedback from other departments?" he pressed, sounding more skeptical than intrigued. "Hannah, how do we know your results are valid?" The weight of his words punctuated the air. Hannah felt the ground shift beneath her. What if they hadn't convinced him? She opened her mouth but froze, uncertainty flooding her thoughts. Just then, she caught the janitor's eye again, as if he sensed her turmoil. He stood still, steady, a silent anchor amidst the chaos. Then it hit her. Actually, the impact we've made has resonated beyond our team, she proclaimed, her voice gaining strength. It's woven itself into the fabric of our workplace culture. Our changes have been noticed by others. A colleague told me just last week how he felt more motivated due to our initiatives. It's about collaboration, and it's affecting the entire organization. A murmur rippled through the room, and for the first time, Mr. Jenkins' expression softened slightly. Hannah pressed on, emboldened. We've got to focus on not just numbers but people, their lives, their experiences. What we're doing matters. Joe jumped in, enthusiasm pouring from him now. Exactly. It's not just about KPIs, it's about changing how we view teamwork. Like the janitor cleaning our floors, he connects us all in a way that goes beyond the office expectations. The room erupted in nods and murmurs. It was as if Hannah had thrown a spark onto dry wood. Suddenly they were defining their journey, standing not just as individuals but as a united front. As the meeting closed, Hannah felt lighter, bolstered by the support of her team. They had emerged stronger together, but as they left the room, she was haunted by another thought: did they have the momentum to sustain this newfound inspiration? Tomorrow loomed larger still, and the janitor's unseen role echoed within her mind. Was he the key to finding deeper connections in their work culture? As the last of her team mingled out, a sense of determination filled Hannah. Could they take this moment and create lasting change? The question lingered, urging her to seek beyond what she once thought possible. What happened next would determine if their unity could flourish, or if it would fall apart under pressure. Hannah stepped into the bustling office the next morning, heart racing with anticipation. Everyone could feel it, the momentum. People moved with purpose, a newfound energy crackling in the air. They had jumped from deep discussions and uncertainty to something vibrant and alive. But would they keep it going? As she walked through the sea of desks, smiles met her. Joe waved enthusiastically from across the room. Marcus shared a fist bump with a colleague, laughter bubbling up effortlessly. It felt different, like they were all in this together, no barriers separating their experiences anymore. Gathering everyone into the conference room felt like a celebration in its essence, and Hannah's confidence surged. All right, team. Let's talk about our next steps, she began, scanning the room filled with expectant faces, eager for collaboration rather than competition. Claire was the first to respond, her voice steady yet filled with a hint of vulnerability. I've never been this invested before. Maybe it's time we finally engage all departments in our innovative initiatives. Let's build a feedback loop. The response was immediate. Nods spread like wildfire, building momentum around the idea. One voice after another chimed in, breathing life into suggestions. They were not just solving problems anymore, they were crafting a vision together. That's what I mean. Hannah exclaimed, her heart swelling with pride. Our voices matter, together. We can create a space where everyone feels heard. This is how we redesign our workplace. Her joy was contagious, and laughter spilled into the corners of the room. Yet, lingering doubts crept in. Could their unity withstand inevitable challenges? Suddenly, the door opened, and in walked Mr. Jenkins, the senior VP, an unmistakable weight hovering over him. Hannah felt a jolt of anxiety. What if he could disrupt this electric atmosphere? Good morning, everyone, he greeted, the authority in his voice cutting through the chatter. Hannah squared her shoulders and looked him in the eye, determined not to shy away. We're discussing our next initiatives, Mr. Jenkins, how we intend to integrate feedback loops from all departments. The room bristled with anticipation. Would he stifle their momentum or fuel it? Mr. Jenkins crossed his arms, observing. Is that so? Tell me how this would work. He asked, his tone a blend of skepticism and curiosity. Joe stepped up, bolstered by Hannah's unwavering spirit. We can introduce regular forums where everyone shares their insights, like an open mic for ideas. The anonymous feedback box can bring out voices that feel hesitant. A ripple of excitement coursed through the attendees. This felt refreshing, and Hannah could see the flicker of intrigue in Mr. Jenkins' eyes. He nodded slowly, as if considering their proposition. "All right," he replied, leaning forward slightly. "But you need to ensure the impact is measurable. If you want to engage everyone, you must also hold some accountability." Hannah felt relief wash over her. They were on the right track, and it was as if Mr. Jenkins was testing their commitment to this new vision. "Absolutely. We can implement a tracking system to share the results and showcase our growth," she asserted, firing up the resolve in the room. The feeling of camaraderie surged again. As discussions flowed and ideas evolved, Hannah caught a glimpse of Joe. He grinned, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had taken together. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders, the thrill of possibility electrifying everything around her. Later that evening, the office remained alive with energy, a few late shifts buzzing with brainstorming ideas. As Hannah passed Joe's cleaning cart outside the conference room, she paused. "You know," she began, "I think we really might change things around here." Joe looked up, his eyes gleaming with pride. "It's all connected, isn't it? Just like cleaning, sometimes the smallest details make the biggest impact." She smiled, feeling grateful for their bond, forged from courage and vulnerability. As they locked eyes, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Together, they were building something lasting. They had the desire, the drive, and most importantly, the compassion to redefine their workplace. Could they keep rising on this wave of change? The next day they implemented their first feedback forum. Chairs lined up in a circle, each person armed with ideas, memories, experiences. They were all human, united by the shared fabric of their struggles. As the meeting flowed, Hannah's heart swelled when she realized conversations happening were filled with raw honesty and laughter, not the stifled corporate speak they'd been accustomed to. Each story woven together fortified their commitment, as if that very floor they stood on pulsed with every heartfelt word. Moments turned into hours as they shared vulnerabilities and embraced laughs. It was a lesson in overcoming discomfort, finding strength in their differences, and celebrating the unique experiences each voice brought to the table. As the session began to wind down, someone raised their hand. "What if we share our stories with the rest of the company? Illustrate how collaboration has transformed our dynamics." Nods erupted in agreement, and Joe's face lit up with inspiration. "Yes. Let us celebrate our shared experiences and demonstrate why this connection matters." They crafted a plan to share their journey, encouraging participation across the company. This was their new normal, to cultivate openness, unity, and understanding. Weeks passed, and as their feedback initiatives grew, so did interdependencies across departments. Strength blossomed, the culture pulsed with energy and support. And then one day, as they celebrated their successes at a company-wide event, Hannah stood on the stage reflecting on their journey. She glanced to see Joe at the back, his eyes shimmering with pride. "It's been an incredible journey," she began, her heart full. "We've learned that every person has value and depth, regardless of their role. It's the stories we share that build bridges, and those connections are what make us stronger." The room erupted in applause, and as Hannah's gaze met Joe's, tears glistened in her eyes. Their journey together had not just transformed their workplace but had utterly reshaped their lives. The buzz of excitement lit up the atmosphere, and Hannah knew their efforts had sparked not only awareness but a revolution, a movement towards collective strength. When the celebration concluded, she stepped outside, feeling the cool breeze against her face, a sense of hope washing over her. They had created a culture where every voice mattered, and she knew they could keep the momentum going for themselves and for generations yet to come. In that moment, she understood that transformation wasn't just about actions taken, but the heartfelt connections made along the way. It was a beautiful chapter in their story, and the best was yet to come. And with that, a profound realization dawned: change was indeed possible, if only they dared to dive in and lift each other up. How could they not embrace this journey together? As the sun set over the city, painting the skyline with golden hues, Hannah felt a renewed promise swell in her heart, a belief that together, they could create something extraordinary. "Now, it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, you know it makes a difference. I want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts and reactions about this ending below. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support the channel and be part of our incredible community.